What if the very ground beneath our historical feet isn't solid earth, but a meticulously constructed stage built on phantom years? We meticulously chart history, year by year, monarch by monarch, war by war. But what if there's a gaping, cavernous silence in that timeline? A void spanning nearly 3 centuries, 297 years to be precise, that simply didn't happen? That's the chilling core of the phantom time hypothesis. It posits that the years 614 to 911 AD are, in essence, a historical fabrication. Imagine a world where Charlemagne, the iconic father of Europe, didn't live when we think he did, but a full 3 centuries later, where entire swaths of the early Middle Ages, the so-called Dark Ages, are not just poorly documented, but intentionally empty. It sounds like something out of a pulp novel, I know, but the proponents of this hypothesis aren't pulling it from thin air. They point to what they call system errors in the historical record, glitches, if you will, that suggest our timeline isn't just fuzzy, but fundamentally misaligned.
The primary macroscopic discrepancy often cited involves the Gregorian calendar reform of 1582. Pope Gregory III, advised by astronomers, decreed the removal of 10 days to realign the calendar with the vernal equinox. The Julian calendar, instituted by Julius Caesar in 45 BC, had accumulated an error of approximately 11 minutes per year, causing a drift. By 1582, calculations indicated this drift amounted to roughly 10 days. The proposed phantom years period, 614 to 911 AD, is specifically singled out because if these centuries were truly added, the accumulated error would be significantly greater than the 10 days corrected. A full 297 years would imply an error closer to 13 days, necessitating a larger adjustment than what was observed. The current 10-day correction aligns almost perfectly if one assumes the Julian calendar operated consistently for a much shorter period.
So, essentially, the math doesn't quite add up. If our history stretched back as far as we believe, the calendar drift should have been worse than what Pope Gregory corrected. It's like finding a clock that's only 10 minutes slow, but being told it's been running for 1,000 years longer than its mechanism suggests. It implies a much shorter operational period for that clock. But calendars are just one piece of paper-thin evidence. What about the physical world, the archaeological record?
Precisely. The archaeological record presents arguably the most compelling, or perhaps unsettling, set of anomalies. The period spanning the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries AD, which proponents designate as the Phantom Time, exhibits a peculiar scarcity of verifiable archaeological strata in Western Europe. While it's true that some periods are less archaeologically rich than others, the proposed phantom centuries are characterized by an almost inexplicable void in datable material culture, particularly in regions that were demonstrably active before and after this period. We observe a continuity in styles, technology, and settlement patterns that appears to skip these centuries. Structures attributed to the Carolingian era, for instance, often show construction techniques or artistic motifs that seem anachronistic when juxtaposed with their supposed chronological predecessors from the 6th century. It suggests a direct leap rather than a gradual evolution.
It's like finding a book where chapters 7 through 9 are just missing pages, but the narrative still flows, albeit with some jarring jumps. And these architectural leaps, you're saying entire styles seem to appear out of nowhere, without the typical transitional phases we'd expect?
Indeed. Consider the sudden proliferation of monumental Romanesque architecture around the 10th and 11th centuries. While some foundational elements can be traced, the sheer scale, sophistication, and widespread uniformity appear almost ex nihilo when viewed through a conventional lens, lacking extensive developmental precursors in the alleged 7th to 9th centuries. The stylistic gap between late Roman buildings and the Carolingian revival, for example, is often bridged by remarkably few or highly contested intermediate structures. It's an observable glitch in the architectural evolutionary path, as if several centuries of incremental development were simply condensed or, more unsettlingly, omitted.
It's not just a numerical oddity then, it's the physical world itself refusing to corroborate our timeline, an archaeological black hole, and architectural blueprints that skip centuries. This isn't just about missing paper, but missing foundations. If the very stones beneath our feet are whispering dissent, then the true architects of this temporal shift must have been incredibly powerful. This isn't just about a few missing pottery shards. This is about entire building styles, the very bedrock of cultural evolution, appearing to jump across time. If these anomalies aren't accidental, if they're system errors in a manipulated timeline, then who would have the motive and the power to orchestrate such a monumental deception?
The primary proponents, most notably German historian Heribert Illig and chronologist Hans Ulrich Niemitz, meticulously analyzed these discrepancies, concluding that a deliberate, large-scale manipulation of the historical timeline occurred. Their theory implicates a clandestine collaboration between powerful figures in the late 10th and early 11th centuries, specifically Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and potentially the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII's Porphyrogenitos. The motive, as posited, was multifaceted. Otto III harbored ambitions of establishing a Renovatio Imperii Romanorum, a renewal of the Roman Empire centered in Rome. To solidify his claim and imbue it with prophetic significance, creating the year 1000 AD, a numerically significant date for millenarian expectations, would have provided immense ideological leverage. This would necessitate shifting the calendar forward by approximately 297 years. Pope Sylvester II, a brilliant scholar and a key advisor to Otto, possessed the intellectual capacity and the access to the necessary records, ecclesiastical chronicles, and dating systems to execute such a temporal forgery. The Byzantine connection, through Constantine VII, could have ensured a unified or at least unopposed shift across the dominant Christian empires.
So, it wasn't just about tweaking dates. It was about manufacturing a pivotal millennium moment, a divinely sanctioned new beginning, and retrospectively validating an empire through a grand, shared narrative. It's a breathtaking concept. That history itself could be a political construct. But how do you just invent nearly 3 centuries of events and documents?
The process hypothetically would have involved several mechanisms. Firstly, the creation of historical figures and events to fill the void, often composites, or existing figures attributed new achievements or chronologies. Secondly, the widespread forgery and retrospective dating of documents. The early medieval period, already notorious for its scarcity of original manuscripts, would have been particularly vulnerable. Many surviving chronicles are copies of copies, often made centuries after their supposed original composition, offering ample opportunity for interpolation or outright fabrication. Think of the donation of Constantine, a known medieval forgery used to legitimize papal power, as a precedent. Such actions on a much larger scale could have fabricated an entire era. Additionally, the manipulation of existing Roman and early Christian texts, altering references to dates or events, would have been critical. The sheer logistical scale is daunting but not impossible, given the centralized power structures and the limited literacy of the broader population at the time. Furthermore, proponents argue that the absence of independent corroboration for many events within this alleged phantom period is not merely a consequence of poor preservation, but a deliberate lack of origin. They highlight repetitive narrative motifs across different chronicles purportedly from these centuries, descriptions of identical plagues, famines, or comets, sometimes appearing in different years. These cloned events are interpreted as narrative filler, designed to create the illusion of historical continuity where none existed. It's a recurring pattern, a digital ghost in the machine of history, suggesting a scarcity of unique source material.
Cloned events. That's a terrifying thought. That history itself could be copy-pasted, a series of pre-programmed narratives meant to lull us into accepting a fabricated reality. If this hypothesis holds any water, it doesn't just rewrite history. It fundamentally alters our perception of human development, technological progress, and even the very nature of time itself.
The implication extends beyond a mere chronological adjustment. If 297 years were artificially inserted, then every historical progression, artistic styles, technological innovations, the evolution of languages, the development of political systems would be compressed into a much shorter span. What we perceive as gradual, centuries long shifts would in reality be rapid, almost explosive developments. This would force a reevaluation of human ingenuity and societal evolution, suggesting an accelerated pace that contradicts conventional archaeological and sociological models. The most unsettling aspect is the idea that our collective historical memory, the grand narrative we all share, could be a meticulously crafted illusion. It leaves us with the unsettling question: if this specific manipulation occurred, what other aspects of our perceived reality might be based on similar, deeply ingrained, but ultimately false narratives? The glitches in the system, once noticed, cannot be unseen. They linger, questioning the very foundation of what we believe to be true.
And the phantom years aren't truly missing. They're ghosts in the machine, detectable by their echoes, by the calendar math that doesn't quite work, by the archaeological strata that aren't there, and by the architectural leaps that seem too perfect. It's a quiet hum beneath the surface of history, a constant, eerie reminder that our timeline might just be a story told to us. And some stories have an author we'll never know.